What's going on, guys? Shane here. So today we're talking about the importance of pacing yourself in a fight and how to do it correctly. How often have you watched a fight where a guy comes out real aggressive, lands a big shot, looks like the fight's going to be over, the next thing you know there's this miraculous recovery from his opponent, the comeback kid ends up knocking out the guy who you thought was going to win. It's not a miraculous recovery. What happened was that fighter weathered the storm. Now the other guy who came out aggressive, he's tired, he can't even keep his hands up, and he gets picked apart and knocked out. Okay, so don't be that guy. I'm going to explain how to pace yourself. We're going to break down fighters who do it correctly and strategies to follow. Now, I've competed in the past, boxing and Muay Thai, and I've made the mistake of not pacing myself, burning out all of my fuel within the first round, and then getting beat up for 2 rounds after that because I was so tired. And I've also made the mistake of pacing myself too much and never pulling the trigger. It was a very lackluster fight, and I lost decision. And then there was fights where I feel like I paced myself perfectly, and I felt like I could have fought another 3 or 4 rounds. And that's the way you want to go. Because if you're looking to finish a fight within the first minute or within the first round, it's not going to happen unless you're Conor McGregor. And even Conor McGregor made the mistake when he fought Diaz the first time. He went in there, looked great in the first round, but he's throwing 100% in every shot. And then he got tired in the second round, he got picked apart, and he got choked out. Okay, so pacing yourself is very important. And then he learned from that mistake in the next fight, in the rematch, which he won. Okay, other fighters to emulate, besides the Diaz brothers, GSP was another one who's great at pacing himself. If you watch his fights against BJ Penn, for instance, in the rematch, the end of the first round, he looks up at the clock. Not because he's tired and he's like, oh, how much time do I have left? But it's because he knows his body. He trained for this. I got 1 minute left. All right, in training, when I have 1 minute left in the first round, I push him up against the cage. I drain his energy a little bit. I don't actually go for the takedown because I know I have 4 rounds left. I'll save the second round for the takedown. Then I'll lay on top of him and I'll push down on his chest and start to break down his stamina. And then in the third round, I'll start working my striking. If you go back and watch, you can almost see the strategy. Round 1, round 2, round 3, what it was exactly, and it worked perfectly. You know, if you were to make a diagram of these fighters' pace, Nick Diaz, Nate Diaz, GSP, would look something like this. This is the way to go. Watch a traditional Muay Thai match. The first round is boring to most because they're just using probes, teeps, jabs to see how their opponent reacts, but they don't exert a ton of energy. If you're training for a competition match. Now, if you're talking about a street fight, no, street fights aren't set by rounds. They're not structured 3 minutes at a time, right? Maybe in your training, you do want to do 2 minutes, 0 to 100 from the start and keep it constant. And then maybe you have to run because a group of guys are chasing you, but whatever. So what I'm talking about is competition here. We're talking about Muay Thai, MMA, boxing, even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Pace yourself and understand how to do it. So let's break down different ways on how to do it during the fight and how to prepare leading up to it. Keep your training sport specific, which is pretty much what I just said earlier, and I've been preaching this since the dawn of fight tips. You want to fight like you train and train like you fight. You don't walk into a gym, put on the gloves, and hit the heavy bag at 100% for 2 minutes straight. You'll be exhausted. Usually you warm up, do some jump rope, shadow boxing, then you work your way up with some mitts, then you go to the heavy bag, then you spar, and the whole time you're pacing yourself. Well, you want to structure that the same way for a fight. Backstage, you do your warm up, you do your shadow boxing, you hit a little bit of mitts. Then you walk out to the cage or to the ring, you see your opponent, you get nervous, right? So then you got to worry about that. You got to take that into consideration. The lights are on you, the cameras, there's people shouting your name, your opponent's family is booing you. But if you can stay calm there, and if you can emulate that in your training, then you won't be as nervous. So you're not hitting a heavy bag. You're hitting your opponent in the gym, right? There's cameras on you. Visualize this. Visualize people shouting your name and be prepared for it so that when you go in, you don't get that adrenaline dump and you don't make rash decisions. You train like you fight like you train. Don't focus so much on power. You don't want to go 100% with every movement that you do. You want it to be effective. So when you're throwing strikes, change the tempo up. Sometimes you throw a light jab or a light 1-2 and then put some power, put some steam on the hook. If you throw 10 100% shots and you only land 1 of them, that means you missed 9. And when you miss a shot, if you throw a punch and you miss, you throw a kick and you miss, that takes a lot more energy than if you were to punch someone's hands or if you were to punch their face. You have that reciprocation, right? And it brings your hand back. But when you punch and you miss, that takes a lot of energy out of you. So stay balanced, change the tempo up, and pick your shots accordingly. Breathe. Remember to breathe. When you're throwing haymakers or big combos, when you're defending against takedowns, or even going for a submission, people have a bad habit of holding their breath. They squeeze it, they flex, right? Or they're really defending against that takedown. They're so focused on that they're not focused on their breathing. Definitely make sure that you pace yourself, and you do that by what? By breathing. Now, this isn't to say that pacing yourself replaces cardio. I still want you doing your cardiovascular training, getting your heart rate up and keeping it there, beating up on the lungs, doing your bag work and road work. However, if you know how to pace yourself and you have good cardio, you will be the ultimate version of yourself. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Remember, keep it sport specific. What are you training for? How is it structured? Is it a 2-minute street fight potentially? Or is it a 5-minute round fight? How do you think you should train? All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below and I will get back to you. Be sure to subscribe to get the fight tips before your opponent does. I'm Shane with Fight Tips, self-defense for the underdogs.